Hello and welcome to another episode of Laptop Retrospective, and today I have a long-awaited model that I've wanted to feature on the channel in the ThinkPad lineup, and that is the ThinkPad W540. And this thing is huge and awesome in every single dimension that something can be called huge and awesome. So the W is a Workstation series of ThinkPads, and the Workstation series is essentially the no-compromise performance professional laptop. And what I mean by that is that everything is in here that you would need for a workstation of that era, and everything else is kind of like, yeah, we don't care how big it is or how heavy it is. We need it to be able to do this, put it inside the box. And that's what you normally get with a W series or the modern P series now. So the W540 is going to look almost exactly the same as the T540 because it shares practically the same chassis. In fact, many of the parts are interchangeable between this and the T540P. That being said though, this has workstation level GPUs, more factory CPU options, and 4 RAM slots, which is absolutely awesome. And we also note that it has top-mounted hinges, which is pretty unique for this era. Most of them were actually included inside the chassis. But anyway, let's talk ports. Over on the left-hand side here, we have a huge exhaust. We have a mini display port that is actually Thunderbolt 1. We've got VGA. We have an always-on USB port, USB 3.0. Believe it or not, Express card, a card reader, and then a headphone microphone combo jack. Along the front, we have absolutely nothing. And then on this side, we have where the smart card reader would go if installed, an optical bay, which is not hot swappable, unfortunately, and then 2 more USB ports, and then the Kensington lock. The back is not wasted, featuring the Ethernet port as well as the power supply and additional cooling for the CPU. If we open up the screen, you will note something very unique about this W540, and I've actually already featured the video of the work being done on this channel. And that, of course, has to do with this right here. Originally, it comes with the single, essentially, button click pad. That was swapped out because the click pad has a bit of a reputation for being a bit cumbersome to use. And the nice part is that these drop right on in, give us our track point buttons back, and provide a bit more of a user-friendly experience. If you want to know how to do this yourself, and if you want to see the disassembly of this machine, both of those things are actually featured in that video, and I will leave a link right over here. If you want to buy one of these with this already installed, it's called the W541. Speaking of the W541, the 2 major differences are thus. The W541 comes with this style of click pad, and it features Thunderbolt 2 as opposed to Thunderbolt 1. But do not get too excited about that Thunderbolt 2 on the 541, because both of these laptops use the Thunderbolt 1566 controller. So even though you do have technically Thunderbolt 2 on the W541, it is only going to be operating at Thunderbolt 1 speeds. So just be fully aware that if you need Thunderbolt 2 level of compatibility in tech, you'll get it, but you're not going to get full Thunderbolt 2 speeds. In terms of the display that comes with the W540, we are looking at a 15.6-inch display, and it came in essentially 2 flavors, a 1920 by 1080 300 nit anti-glare panel, or a 2880 16 by 20 350 nit panel, both of which are perfectly acceptable, and I've really enjoyed this 1080p panel. It's nice, and it shows the kind of customer that would be buying this that even the lowest display option is still a good one. In terms of CPUs, you are looking at Intel 4th gen dual cores, quad cores, and there's even one i7-4930MX Extreme Edition. But as you can imagine, those are pretty rare. This one is actually the i7-4800MQ, if you're curious. In terms of GPUs, it was Intel HD Graphics 4600, and then NVIDIA Quattro, which was either the K1100M or K2100M. Now RAM, this is where things get really cool. So the RAM is DDR3 1600 megahertz. However, if you had a dual core CPU, it maxed out at 16 gigs of RAM. But if you had a quad core, you got 32 gigs of RAM. And that is what is inside of this. A whopping 32 gigs of DDR3 RAM. 8 gigabyte sticks would be the maximum that each of the independent slots can accept, so you're not maxing it out beyond 32. Lastly, in terms of battery options, you had two, either a 6-cell 57 watt hour or the whopping 9-cell 100 watt hour battery, which is actually what is featured right here. So as you can see, there is an awful lot of power that's crammed in to one of these, and even though it is 4th gen Intel, finding one of these at a bargain price is certainly worth your time. We do have a docking connector on the bottom for the X40 era of ThinkPads. Batteries are easily removable, and getting access to your main serviceable components is also incredibly easy. With everything back together, let's go ahead and see some boot times. Now keep in mind this is running a hard disk drive, not a solid state, so performance will obviously be considerably diminished compared to a solid state drive. As you can see though, that is no slouch. With an SSD in that bay, we can obviously expect boot times in the 20-second to sub-20-second area. One thing to point out is that even though it does have a huge battery in the 9-cell variant, there is a lot of power that needs to be provided by a 15-inch screen at any kind of brightness. You've got Wi-Fi, 32 gigs, i7 MQ style processor. The battery might, at its worst, last less than 4 hours, but you might be able to get it to sit longer than that, depending on what you're actually pushing the laptop into doing, how many cores are being active, well, how many cores it even has. But that being said, though, if you're in a position where you can find a W540, it's pretty much, if you don't mind the weight, preferable to the T540p in about every measurable way, just due to the extra upgradability. The socketed CPU is a huge bonus. The 4 RAM slots that can take up to 32 gigs of RAM if you've got the quad core. There's just an awful lot to like. Swap out this trackpad and you pretty much have a 541 with the exception of the Thunderbolt 2 standard, but again, it's running at the same speed as Thunderbolt. They generally run a higher price than the T-Series because there aren't as many of them. They're usually held onto by their owners an awful lot longer because they are well-liked machines. They have a lot of connectivity, both legacy support and the brand new stuff is often seen on these devices. Full numpad on there. Pretty much if you're a serious computer user that needs power and portability, it's going to be a W series or a P series. There is some distinct advantages with these units. If you do have any questions about this particular one, it'll be hanging around here probably for a little while, so you can leave them in the comment section down below. And if you enjoyed this video and would like to see more, I hope that I can feature more workstations in the future, but just so you stay in the loop, I would encourage you to do the big 4. Please like the video, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so the next time I feature a workstation class machine, preferably a ThinkPad, you'll be the first to know about it. Thank you so much, and I will see you next time.